Muammar al-Gaddafi, speaking at the UN Assembly this week. He's the leader of Libya. I saw some of his speech. He was really talking about some bizarre stuff. And before we get into it, part of this entire trip to New York, to the UN, for Barack Obama and his staff was highly focused on making it so that Barack Obama doesn't accidentally run into Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. It is amazing the amount of care and coordination that is necessary at these events for them to keep Obama away from Ahmadinejad. And probably Ahmadinejad isn't the only one on that list that they're trying to keep him isolated from. I really just don't understand, Lewis, as it relates to Iran and Ahmadinejad. How is it that a member nation of the UN can threaten the existence of another member nation and still be allowed in? You know, I just don't get it. Without getting into a long-winded discussion of the Israeli-Palestine Middle East situation, just at the very fundamental level, how can Mahmoud Ahmadinejad say that he would like to wipe Israel off the face of the map and still be allowed in? And I know that we'll get emails about people saying it's not that simple, it's not that simple, it's not that simple. At the bottom line, you don't see, at least I haven't seen, other direct comments like that made from one member nation to another.
No, neither have I. And I don't know. I guess it's just, the climate in the Middle East warrants it.
But that doesn't mean the UN needs to allow these people to stay in, right? I mean, it's not completely two-sided. As far as the UN is concerned, it's not two-sided, and that Ahmadinejad has said this about Israel, whereas Israel has not said, we are looking to wipe Iran off the map. They haven't said that. How they can stay in, I don't know. And of course, we could do a week's worth of shows just on this. Of course, at one show a week, that would only be one show. But if we did a daily show, we could also fill that. Okay, so Muammar al-Gaddafi, speaking at the UN Assembly, he's the leader of Libya. Really bizarre, what I caught through an interpreter, of course. He is finding ways to blame Israel for absolutely everything. He brought up the guy that killed John F. Kennedy was Israeli. So he's talking about who? He's talking about Jack Ruby, the famous Jack Ruby. Actually, the guy was Jewish and born in Chicago. You'd think in Libya, being so close to Israel, they'd know the difference between someone who's an American Jew and someone who's Israeli. I guess they don't. They didn't seem to. Apparently, Jack Ruby was Israeli. I don't know. Or maybe there was another Jack Ruby, who lived in Israel at the time that knew Muammar al-Gaddafi. It's not making sense to me. It's not sounding to me like logical discourse. It's not sounding to me like elevated discussion that should be taking place at the UN. It just doesn't.
What does that have to do with anything is what I want to know,
Well, it's part of Let's Blame Israel, which is connected to the U.S.
Right.
And you guys are all going to hell. Maybe not in those words. What was weird is at one point, he was reading off of this, what looked like yellow paper to me at one point, and I could see the writing through it. It was like bold writing, almost like he had used a thick Sharpie. When I got a closer look, it looked like he was writing his speech had been written on some kind of lambskin, and that the words themselves looked like they were written with a really rough piece of charcoal. And as he read and turned the pages, his hands became more and more black from touching whatever it was he had written this speech in. You could use a lot. I mean, you probably need a whole lamb for the speech that he gave. Let's just use some recycled paper, Give us a break, buddy.
That's kind of strange. Maybe it's got some religious significance.
At one point, he started saying people have a right to know who killed Martin Luther King. I thought we knew. Who killed Martin Luther King. But he says that it's being hidden that Israel was involved in the killing of Martin Luther King.
Of course, right.
Of course. I mean, who else would be? Now, at the same time, American Jews, known to al-Gaddafi as Israelis, as we just saw, were incredibly involved with Martin Luther King, and there have been incidents that Martin Luther King's organizers have been involved with where there were deaths, were the only deaths. No African Americans died. Only American Jews, or again, as Muammar al-Gaddafi refers to them, Israelis, died. It's not making too much sense to me. This guy is also, he wanted to pitch a Bedouin tent in Central Park. They told him, get the hell out of here. You're not going to do that. There's a Libyan-owned mansion in New Jersey where he wanted to pitch the tent there, and the community said, absolutely not. I don't know where he's going to end up staying. It's a bizarre situation. Just to finish up with the Middle East for today, Fox News is now criticizing the war, which war, any of them, since they only have 46% support, and not even alluding to the fact that this is a war Barack Obama was handed. This is the war they cheerleaded when George W. Bush was president. Nothing I can say on this show can overstate the hypocrisy of what's taking place with covering presidents and the representations of polls, which polls are presented, so on and so forth. Of course, when the war only had 25% support while George W. Bush was president, Fox filled their segments with experts talking about, hey, those numbers aren't really representative of the mission. Those people, they don't know this. We need to stick to it, and we finish what we start. How every time wars start to extend, the polls hurt, but we need to be there. None of that now. Now it's Barack Obama and his handling of these wars that, by the way, he didn't start and have been going on for 8 years. But, no mention of that. Amazing to me. Amazing. And there's just nothing that can be done. There's nothing that can be done. This is what we're going to see, and it shouldn't be a surprise to us. And all we can really do is try to, when I watch these things, I really think to myself, and I do watch quite a bit of Fox News because I want to know what are they saying? How are they covering things? Fine, I can listen to great programs like Democracy Now! And coverage and all sorts of other media outlets, and I can watch Keith Olbermann and Rachel Maddow. But I'm more interested in what are the talking points for the other side and how extreme are the defenses and hedges and mitigations getting on some of these issues. And they're getting pretty extreme. Socialist, and we've turned from Barack Obama being a Muslim to Barack Obama being a socialist. And here's John Boehner, Congressman John Boehner, being asked, is Barack Obama a socialist?
You really think the president's a socialist?
Listen, when you begin to look at how much they want to grow government, you can call it whatever you want. But the fact is
well, what
that
do you call it, though? This
is unsustainable.
That's fine. Do you think the president's a socialist? Because that's okay, but the head of the Republican Party is calling him that.
Listen, I didn't call him that, and I'm not going to call him.
So what was his answer? Can you from that 19-second clip, can you explain what he not what his answer was? Can you tell me what he thinks about that answer?
No.
Right.
No.
We know that he's saying he hasn't called the president a socialist, and he's saying, well, let's look at how he's acting to figure out if he's a socialist. I think I can assume what John Boehner thinks.
Right. He probably anyone with a brain, they might want to insult Obama and say, he's a socialist. Clearly he's a socialist.
Right. Just as he was clearly a Muslim.
Right. But people who are a bit more careful about what they say will say he's acting like a socialist. He has socialist policies and, plans. And so I think that's probably what he's trying to say.
We have a right to know if he's a so-called friendly Muslim or one who aspires to more radical teachings.
That question, it's still being asked. What kind of Muslim is Barack Obama? And all this time, Barack Obama's sitting at a Protestant church saying, what are they talking about? What are they talking about? But wait a second. That's not the real type of Christian. That's a Jeremiah Wright Christian. Well, he hasn't been to that church for years, but, he's a Jeremiah Wright Christian, of course.